The woods around my home fuel my creative urges. Hazel grows vigorously, and for this project I'm going to gather some rods and build a basket boat, also known as a coracle. And I'll have a little help from a canine friend. Selecting the perfect rod with which to build my vessel is a slow and absorbing task. How tall is the rod? How straight is the rod? Is it kinked or heavily forked? Such questions determine what I can take and what I should leave behind. Some time later, and I have gathered enough sticks, which I drag to the edge of the wood. The rods are then sorted into piles in order of length and size, and are stripped of leaves and side branches. On a flat piece of earth I mark out the perimeter of what will be my vessel, an oval shape, roughly 1 metre in length. Taking the longest rods, I drive the base of each firmly into the ground, following the outline of the boat. Using narrower rods, I begin to weave around the upright stakes, flexing the hazel under, over, in and out. I build up several bands of weave, first a wale, then several rows of randing, until all the rods are incorporated. At this stage it looks nothing like a boat, more a high-rise cage for an otherworldly beast. Next I form the hoops and stringers. Each upright stake is bent across to meet its counterpart on the opposite side of the oval. The stringers run lengthways from bow to stern. The hoops are short and rounded, forming the ribs of the boat. The process is surprisingly physical. I use my body weight to coax the rods to bend. Where the rods meet and cross, I lash them tightly together with thick hemp string. Stepping back from the work, the essence of a boat is revealed, albeit upside down and still rooted to the ground, but it's definitely basket-shaped. The rods need time to rest and accept their new shape. Placing a weight on top of the basket will hasten this process. No one can say for certain when coracles first appeared. The organic nature of their parts means they decompose and leave no trace. Some have suggested that they could date back to Neolithic times. Certainly our ancestors would not have had any difficulty sourcing the key components. When a few days have passed, it's time to dig the boat out of the ground, a task that feels strangely primitive and slightly surreal. Released from the ground, the basket is bristling with tension, the rods straining and complaining against their binds. I could have used animal skin to waterproof the hull like they did in ancient times. The heroes of Celtic voyage tales built hide-covered boats for their ambitious ocean journeys. A single ox hide was enough to cover a 2-person coracle. Multiple hides were stitched together to sheath the bigger sea-going currachs. Treated animal hides are difficult to find these days, so I opted for linen instead. With the cloth spread out, I sit the hazel framework in the centre, gather up the fabric, pleating and stitching it around the basket's rim. The linen must be waterproofed, of course. For this vessel I've opted for tar. The Welsh have a saying, "The load of a man is his coracle." I shouldered my burden and carried it down to a nearby canal. Getting into the coracle was a tricky affair. A lot of clutching and anxious yelps went into the process, but eventually I worked my way into the basket. Instead of moving forward, we ended up spinning on the spot. That's the effect a J-stroke has on a round boat. The right way to paddle is with a figure of 8 stroke, which I eventually get the hang of.